Hello everyone, my name is Dennis Bukowski and this is my book talk presentation for Education 3503. My first book, we are going to read When Planet Earth Was New by James Gladstone and Catherine D. Mert. So here's the cover page right here. And this book is for grades 2 to 6 and it covers the topics of nonfiction, science, biology, earth, space, and it's quite educational in my opinion. And it's also a picture book. So in the beginning, it starts off exploring the creation of Earth, how it was created, how it was very explosive and fiery. It goes through its various phases, so mountains and oceans, the Great Oxygenation Event. It goes through the creation of life, talks a little bit about extinction, dinosaurs, and it goes all the way to the present day. So it covers modern animals and, of course, us humans. So let's begin. I'll just start off at the first page here. So here's the first page. You can see a whole bunch of planets and galaxies. So this was Earth, long before plants, animals, or people, billions of years ago, when planet Earth was new. Second page, you see a whole bunch of volcanoes. If I was a kid, I would love these photos. Well, I still love them, but you could not walk on the searing hot molten rock that flowed there, or breathe the deadly poison gas that swirled there. Nothing could. There was no life on Earth when planet Earth was new. Third page, a whole bunch of mountains. Millions of years passed, and slowly, so slowly, Earth started to cool. The hot liquid rock became solid. You can see there's big oceans now, big tidal wave right here. A sky full of water vapor poured down as rain. For millions and millions and millions of years, it rained. The rain formed huge oceans. The oceans are where life first grew. Next page, you can see a whole bunch of microorganisms, a little algae right there. Tiny life forms grew into mats of slimy green. They formed mounds of strange rock. Next page, you can see the Great Oxygenation Event. Whole bunch of fish on this page. Life evolved on land. Reptiles. But Earth's great globe of life did not evolve all at once. Can you guess? It took millions and millions and millions of years for ancient life to evolve. Through all this time, ancient species lived and thrived. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the authors. So James is a children's nonfiction writer who lives in Toronto, and this is actually his first picture book. He's quite a new author. He's only been writing since about 2017, and he's already won the Norma Fleck Award for Canadian children's nonfiction. So some of his earlier books include Earthrise, Apollo 8, and The Photo That Changed the World, as well as Journey Around the Sun. So he's very into science education, and he loves inspiring children to look into science, look into space technology, astronomy. Like, for example, Earthrise is about the Apollo 8 mission and how the astronauts took the photo of Earth. And that was the first photo of Earth ever taken. It's the little blue planet one, if anyone remembers. And the book just talks about how that photo is so important, how much it impacted us, impacted society. So like I said, he has a great love of our planet, and his writings reflect that. Now, Catherine is the artist, and she actually, this is also her first picture book. So for my classroom activity, I decided I think this would be a fun one for a science class in K to 6. So I would put students in groups of 3 to 4 and give them pictures from this book. Exactly the same pictures as in the book, but just assorted in a way that's random and not in order. And first of all, I would have students describe what's happening in those pictures with the vocabulary that they learned from reading this book and from what I taught them as a teacher. And there's actually also a glossary in the back to help them with that. And then I'll have the students arrange the pictures in chronological order. So my purpose with this is clearly to have students remember the chronology of how Earth was formed. So from the very beginning to all the volcanoes, to oceans, to the great oxygenation event, the creation of life, evolution, all those huge, huge ideas. They don't need to know them in detail, of course, but knowing the timeline, in my opinion, is very, very important, especially for a young scientist. And then I would just go through the correct order as a class after they've finished sharing their answers with each other and helping each other out. So depending on the grade you're using this book with, honestly, it can be for any grade. As you can see, grade 1, needs of animals and plants. You can absolutely connect this book to that. Grade 2, hot and cold temperature, small crawling and flying animals, even exploring liquids. Grade 3, rocks and minerals. All these grades have something that you can use this book for. Of course, it's a picture book. You don't really want to use it for anything probably past grade 3, but you can if you want. You could use the pictures. You could absolutely use the lesson that I explained earlier. My second book is called We Are All Connected, Inuit, Tundra, and Ravens by Michael Kusugak, Brenda Borham, and Terry Mack. So I would say this book is for grade levels 3, 4, 5, and this book talks about indigenous stories, people. It even goes into some biology, ecosystems, plants and animals, and it talks a lot about social studies as well, the relations between FNMI and us, the history of the Inuit in specific, because Michael is an Inuit. And yeah, let's get started. So it starts off with an Inuit story called Nicole and the Ravens by Jennifer Anowak. And on the second page, there is a drawing of a raven. So I'll just read to you guys the story. Just going to check the time. Okay. So, Nicole and the Ravens. This is what it looks like. Nicole loves ravens. Every day on her walk home from school, she sees ravens sitting on the top of power poles, on buildings, and teasing dogs. When Nicole gets home from school, she hopes that her Anana, mother, has some food scraps that she can feed to her friends. One day, her Anana had some food scraps waiting for her on the kitchen table. Nicole went over to the window, opened it, and saw all of her raven friends gathered. She tore the scraps into pieces and tossed them out the window. She listened to them cackle and talk to each other in their strange raven language. This was her favorite part of the day. Another day, her Atata, father, came home after work and started getting the snow machine ready for a trip. Atata, she said, where are you going? We are going camping for the weekend. I heard that the caribou herd is nearby and we need meat for the winter. When they returned, it was dark, so Nicole went right to bed after helping put away the catch and the supplies. As soon as the sun came up the next morning, Nicole heard a loud tapping sound by the window. It was the ravens. They were wondering where their scraps were. Nicole found some from the camping trip, opened the window, and fed the ravens. She sat by the window and listened to her friends cackle away in their strange raven language. Now, there's clearly a ton of symbolism in that story, but unfortunately, I do not have time to go into that. I want to talk a little bit more about the book. So this book, like I said before, it it has that story in the beginning. It transitions into ecological topics such as tundra. It talks a lot about ravens in particular, because the book is called Inuit, Tundra, and Ravens. It talks about vertebrates. It has a little, it's not a food web, but it has the classes of vertebrates on here. What are birds? It has a lot of these little vocabulary boxes, so it's fantastic for a science class. It talks about the different parts of ravens. It talks about what they eat. So it has all these berries and robin eggs, snakes even. I didn't even know that. It has an actual food web right here. And yeah, it's just a fantastic book. And then at the end, it transitions more into a social studies theme. It talks about an interview with Michael, the author. And if you can see on this picture on my slideshow on the right, it has Michael's grandfather. And below that, there's a word box. Those word boxes are interview questions asked to Michael. There's 9 questions in the whole book. And I'm going to talk about the importance of that in my lesson plan. So a little bit about the author. So Michael is an Inuit storyteller and author of children's books from Nunavut. He spent the first 12 years of his life living in Naujat. I probably butchered that word, but I'll get better. Promise. Some of his books include Inuit Songs and Stories, Hide and Sneak, My Arctic 123, and The Littlest Sled Dog. I definitely want to read that last one because the cover art is the cutest little dog ever. So the classroom activity I want to do is there's a lot of these text bubbles. I'll give you an example here. So, number 1, what does "we are all connected" mean to you, Michael? So I would have the kids read, for example, that, and I would have them answer the question based off their experience. Then I would ask them to compare their response to Michael's response. And then I compare and contrast them. I'd probably ask them to do 3 questions. If they have more time, they can do more if they'd like. And also, depending on what class I'm teaching, science or social, I could orient them to the more social studies questions or the more sciencey questions, because there are also sciencey questions. Number 2, what is an important area within your territory? It's just another example. Number 3, Michael, what is a traditional gathering that takes place in your community during the year? For example, a student might answer Christmas or Halloween. Michael definitely did not answer that, so I would ask the students to compare and contrast. It talks about traditional foods, important plants, and trees. So, of course, these questions would have the students research a little bit if they don't know the answer themselves, and I think that's fantastic. Like I said earlier, this can be taught in both a science or a social class, and since the book is about grade 2 to 6, I would look at those programs of studies. And yeah, thank you all for listening to my book talk. It's been a pleasure. That was honestly really fun, and I hope to do more. Thank you.